Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Women Warriors, where we are learning to stay connected to Christ. I am your host, Dominique, and this is my lovely co host, Monique. And so today we are going to be we're going to be obviously continuing the transparent version of our testimony,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just getting more intense. We're kind of breaking it down by season. And so
Mm-hmm.
today we are going to be talking about wisdom. And are we allowing it to advance us towards the heart of Christ, or do we just
Mm-hmm.
know the things that we know? And so Mo is going
Right.
to start us off with the scripture.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So today, one of the scriptures that we have for you is James 1:5. And it states, if any one of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And I know for a lot of us, it's not really about gaining wisdom because we have the wisdom, and that's what the main topic is. Like, we have that the wisdom, but actually using the wisdom and receiving the wisdom and retaining the wisdom. um I know for me, to be honest, in my past, like, I've been more so of a read the word, not much of a doer of the word. And that's what our main focus is today, is to kind of discuss ways that we can be intentional with knowing the wisdom and actually putting the wisdom into action. I've really gained a lot of knowledge and principles from the word, and that's what the word is there for us to do. We say we want to have a similar heart of Christ. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to have the exact blueprint of Christ, but we say we want to, excuse me, we want to gain the heart of Christ. And in order to know what that looks like, we have to have that word. We have to have that wisdom. Um, so, Nick, what are some different, like, characteristics or attributes you would say that you have learned over the years or over this past year that um, makes you more equipped or gives you like that heart posture of Christ?
Well, first, I want to start by reading the definition of wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the definition of wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. It is also the quality of being wise. And so, I'm going to do a little
I like
spin
that.
myself on this instead
Mm-hmm.
of boasting about my wisdom. I am
Mm-hmm.
going to flip the table on myself
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like in this season, God is showing me that the current wisdoms that you have, they just aren't good enough. Like they just
Mm.
won't work. And
That's real.
so, where I
That's
thought I
real.
was so wise
Yep.
and so in tune with
Yep.
what God wanted me to do and where He has directed me to go. I thought I was so wise and I knew so much and I was
Mm-hmm.
so sure of how
Mm-hmm.
this all would work out. And so I myself have been in a season where I am understanding that I do have quality and experience, but a
Right.
part of the definition of wisdom is um, knowledge. Well, it's having knowledge, experience, and good judgment. And so
I
hmm,
like that good judgment.
it makes me think because I'm like, well, am I? It's not to contradict God when He says, "Oh, I've given you wisdom and understanding." Yes, He
Mm-hmm.
has about a lot of things, but it's only because of me that I don't have any greater wisdom than what I
Right.
have now. That is
Mm-hmm.
not due to God not having the power to give
Mm-hmm.
me more wisdom and give me more understanding. It's just that up until this point, I've just only been wise. Like, what
Right.
else have I
Right.
done with the wisdom? I'm sure
Right.
we all like to think that we are humble and poised and we walk right and we talk right and we act right, but that's just not the truth.
Mm-mm.
For myself, anyway, that's just not my truth. My
Yeah.
truth is that God is constantly working on delivering me. So I don't find myself in a position to boast about how wise I am.
Right.
I find myself in a more humble position while I, like I said, while I have gained wisdoms up until this point,
Mm-hmm.
They are just not working anymore. I do
Yeah.
need increase. And so with that desire to have increase and to constantly be gravitated closer towards the heart of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
um, with that it has to come understanding as well and action. And
Yep.
so a lot of times we consume a lot of wisdom and
Uh-huh.
we know some stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
where's the application? Because
Yeah.
it says you have good judgment. So that means if I know that I know that God
Mm-hmm.
said these things, why am I still having conversations about having a bad attitude? And why am I
Ooh.
still having conversations with people about just going through test and trial and gritting your
Mm-hmm.
teeth and allowing
Yeah.
God to conform you into something that you've never been. Why is that so hard? If I have such good judgment and I'm
Mm-hmm.
so wise and I know
Mm-hmm.
what God is doing, why are we
Mm-hmm.
still having the same problems?
Right. Right.
The math is not mathing. So for me, I find it very hard to sit here and boast about how wise I am. But I do understand that in that humble place is where God can
Mm-hmm.
deal with me better, because I do understand that I need greater wisdom in
Mm-hmm.
order to advance closer towards the heart of Christ. There are
Right.
some more things that I have to puke up. So it's not so much
Yeah.
about me being wise as it is me being ready to surrender more.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I like
you
that
know
you
what I
said,
mean?
yeah, and I like that you said that because I had him here in my notes that one of the things that really hold us back from being completely transformed is pride, thinking that we
Mhm.
know it all. Oh, we read the Bible, this is what the Bible says, and we know
Woo!
it, but we're not acting on it. We
Mm-mm.
just know it. And I've experienced that myself, and I've met many of people who are that way and have learned to be that way. But that pride factor, that is not, it's only going to hold you back. And I think
Yep.
another thing that really is close to home for me is something else that holds you back from transformation is fear of what's going to be required of you. And we've talked about on this podcast before, we've talked about it. Um, Kind of being fearful of, because what happens next you have no idea, but you know God is going to take you to a whole new level.
Yeah.
But what's going to be required of you to get to that whole new level is kind of like, do I want to step there? Like, I don't know. Like, that's kind of, intimidating in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know from living the life,
Yeah,
of the very life that we're speaking of, that is
for
very
sure.
intimidating. I've also found myself in a place, I'm glad that we're talking wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
because the things that I'm saying would seem contradicting to being a wise person. Because if you're
Mm,
wise, you don't ever need to be the smallest person in the room. But I'm in a season where God is like,
I
you
see.
have to return back to the position of being the smallest person in the room, not the
Mm-hmm.
smartest, for sure. You won't be the smartest, but where I'm taking you, I will align you with people who you can easily adapt with, who you can easily
Mm-hmm.
learn to gain wisdom from and use it in your own walk with Christ. But I believe that a lot of us don't consider that to be a wise position. I think it's very wise to, at some point in your walk with God, to allow Him to place you in that position where you're not the
Mm-hmm.
smartest person. You don't have the best ideas in the room. You
Yeah.
might not be the loudest. You might not have the greatest talent. But
Right.
there's a humble transformation that
Mm-hmm.
happens when you surrender and you say, Auntie Moni and I was talking about this at church this morning. It's I think a lot of us are in that season where we're not the big dog. Like we're
Yeah.
we're not the know-it-all and the person
Yeah.
who has the answers. A lot of us are in seasons
Yeah.
where we can't be attached to people who need us, who are very needy to our gift. We can't be attached to that because we are in such a place of refinement. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is the case for myself. And so I will not boast about old wisdoms because I'm in a
Mm,
place where I need to become more wise
more
and I need
wise.
to be
Yeah.
humble and I need
Yeah.
to say to people who I have an opportunity to tell my testimony to, yes, there was a time where I was the wisest amongst friends, but now
Mm-hmm.
there is a season where it's more of close your mouth and learn something,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Mm-hmm.
also goes along with that exposure. When you are being exposed by God, that is also a humbling position to be in. And believe you me, you will not find yourself boasting and bragging about
At all.
how smart you are and how put together you are.
Listen.
It goes more along the lines of transparency and saying, the things that I've learned have been great, but they will
Mm-hmm.
not carry me any further. I
Yeah.
have to gain new wisdom. I have to gain new understanding. And so then that leads me to a question I heard a little while ago. Um, how do you expect to get more if you refuse to refine your skills? And I'm
Ooh.
just like, okay, that makes so much sense. Like,
Ooh.
if I refuse to sit back in that very humble and desperate place that I was once in when I first
Mm-hmm.
wanted to touch the hem of his garment, if I
Yeah.
don't find myself constantly returning there to refine
Mm-hmm.
my wanting to be like Christ, how do
Yeah.
I expect to get closer if I never
Right.
return to the him to refine my skills, to refine my
Mm-hmm.
heart like posture, you know? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I had to sneeze real quick. Excuse
Oh, it's
me.
okay.
No, that's so real because um I know for me a lot of times, well, I don't want to say I forget, but I'm so eager to move forward that I don't look back and see how eager I was or how much wisdom I had before. I kind of try to just like replace it with something else, but it's not
Mhm.
really what God intended for me. Um, and I think another thing that has held me back from gaining more wisdom before in the past is busyness. Like, I'm busy. I'm so busy. I got this. I got that. I got whatever to do. Excuse me. And it's I miss my opportunity, or my opportunity is pushed back because or it might, let me not say pushed back, but delayed because I'm not getting the wisdom that I need to gain, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm. That makes that makes a lot of sense. I know that one thing that God was really working with me on in prayer one day. I mean, I'm going to say verbatim what he said. You are adding pressure to a call that
Uh,
is already waiting. And so
oh,
for us to assume that, number one, we should be put together and we should know so much, and add all this unnecessary doubt and unnecessary pressure, because going back to the definition of wisdom, we
uh-huh.
have good judgment, we have knowledge. And
Yeah.
so God has already proven to us, that if this is the way that we walk, this will be the result. No matter what
Right.
happens in between, that this will be the result
Mm-hmm.
of this will be the reward of your labor. And
Mm-hmm.
so to think that we could just stay in that one place and know everything about our walk with God and never
Right.
pray more and never fast more, but we will always have it like put together and will
Right.
continuously stay delivered without doing any work,
No type of
is the clinical
elevation.
definition of insane. Like, it really
Yeah.
thinking that you can do the same thing year after year. And I believe that even attests to our walk with God.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that you can do the same thing year after year and that things will change, like something will get
Right.
better, is
Yeah.
insane. That's not wise to think
Yeah.
that those same wisdoms and understandings that God gave you last year, that he's using that for this year. He's not probably not even
Exactly.
using the same ones as last month. Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
mean? And we have these,
Right.
I noticed these small opportunities that he gives us to pay attention to what he's saying.
Yeah.
And so because I had not been paying attention to what he was saying, he had to take me back to the last thing that I heard him say for sure. Like, you know, that I know that we know, like everybody knows that that's the thing, the last thing that you heard me say. So he had given me that instruction. Go back to the last thing I said and use that as instruction for what to do next. So then I find myself in a place of, dang, we should have been, if I go back to the last thing you told me, dang. Wondering why things are not evolved, wondering why they're not, you know, like, is it freezing on your end?
Yeah.
It looked like it was on mine. I don't know what's happening.
It was.
Oh, okay. And so
it's okay.
We think that we need new wisdom when really we need to like repent, like for some of the stuff that's like weighing us down that prevents us from being able to hear God, like even disobedience. Like there's so many things that are attached to us not being able to hear God, being distracted. And I believe that's why he's telling us discipline yourself. Like we've been hearing a lot about discipline. And I'm being able to tell that he's calling us to discipline because he wants to give us the very thing we're like, oh God, give us more wisdom, make us wise, Lord, give us enlarge our territories. And he's like, I'm trying to, but you won't read, like you won't pray, you won't focus, you know? And so that goes to show that the old wisdom you have ain't cutting it.
You're not even using that old wisdom that he's given you already.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how can you ask for renewed wisdom if you're not even using what you currently have?
And so I believe we're in a space where he's giving us an opportunity to refine our wisdoms. And that is why he's calling us to read and to pray and to obey so that we can place ourselves in a position where we are more humble, that we understand that we're not the wisest and smartest and biggest person in the room, but that's okay, because when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen. Absolutely. And you'll be whatever he wants you to be is what you will be. And that's what all of this is for you to be what God has called you to be, not what we desire to be for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so another thing that he was telling me is do something about what you know. Don't just not do anything with your wisdom. The wisdom that you do have, don't just not do anything. So what, you know?
Right.
Pastor Carl and I was talking about that one day at prayer where we were talking as a group, but he's like, it's, you know, and what else?
Right. That's cool. Like, you know, but
I mean,
what
you could say the scripture. Yeah. But what else? Like, is it transforming your heart? So you know that the Lord is not, you know that he's not a man that would lie. Right. And so if we are in our word and he's giving us instruction on how to be wise, how to stay pure, how to have new grace and new mercy, the thing like just walking right, you know, to be accepting in his sight. If he's given us the instructions, it does no good to just know the instructions. You would think that we, at some point, because we're claiming to have knowledge, that we would apply the instruction in order to see the fruit of our labor. And our labor is sometimes admitting that you're not the wisest person and going to more prayer meetings and being attached in circles where you might be the quietest. Right. You might be the newbie in town, but that's okay, because each season calls for a humble start, like a humble beginning, you know? And so I myself have found myself in that place when it comes to wisdom. That yes, I have learned a lot of things about my walk with Christ, but I know that I have so much more to learn. And I know the root of it starts like in my word. It starts here. It doesn't start here. I know that I was reading earlier, lean not into your own understanding. So even if I thought I was wise enough to understand what God is doing, he still tells us to not lean on our own understanding.
Because
So
we don't
in
know
return,
Jack.
what I'm really saying is that when it comes to my relationship with guys, I don't want to be the person who boasts about being wise. I'd rather be the
Yeah.
person that boast about the way he transforms you,
Uh-huh.
instead of so much the wisdom that I have, because it's easy for everybody to be haughty and say I'm smart about God, like
The
I know stuff
word, and I
about God.
know. Mm-hmm.
Everybody
I can quote
will one day
scripture
say like,
and
but Lord, I prophesied. There will be people who say, Lord, I prophesied in your name. So I don't want to just know. I don't want to just
yeah.
tell people. I'm asking God to make me living evidence that
Mm-hmm.
transformation happens. And that is where I will trust myself with wisdom, when I allow
Yeah.
myself to be more transformed and allow myself to be more submitted. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not wholly in the place to sit here and call myself too wise, you know?
Absolutely. It
And
never
I
will
and I
be.
mean that humbly. And again, it's
Mm-hmm.
not to downplay any of the wisdom and understanding that God has downloaded into my spirit. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's appropriate in this season for me to be humble and for me to
Mm-hmm.
say that God is working on some things that I thought were all put together. He's
Yeah.
like tearing them apart. Like, girl, no, that ain't even what you
Man,
thought it was.
listen,
You
we'll
thought this
humble
was
you
gonna
real
happen.
quick.
And so I've been going through a heavy season of being refined,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's just understanding that God reveals. I think the true wisdom is understanding that God reveals all of these
Mm-hmm.
things about you that are not great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the true wisdom is knowing that He can take all of that and do something with it. So I'm not in a season where he's giving me like these, these crowd jerking revelations
Yeah,
that people want to hear an encore. I'm not in that season.
me
However, I
either.
am in a season to be transparent and to
Uh-huh.
say, God got me wide open. I'm
Right.
exposed. And he's just continuously showing me things in my heart that are not right.
Mm-hmm.
Given the wisdom that I have, these things
Mm-hmm.
are not right. These things don't align with the wisdom that I
Yeah.
know that you have. And so I'm in a season of being rebuked for believing that I am wise. Because it's just not that. It's just not. I'm humbled. I am humbled by the things that God is showing me about
Uh-huh.
myself.
Yeah.
And it does, all the signs point to a mighty woman of God who has wisdom, but
Yeah.
I have not been doing the right things to get on here and boast to people about being
Right.
so wise and put together and
Girl,
stuff. There's just not that way. And so I
listen.
would like to be honest, just as God said, I'd be adding pressure to a call that does not need, the call that God has put on our lives. It does not need our pressure, like human
No.
pressure. The pressure, I mean, it's already, like God was saying, it's already weighty enough. And then
Uh-huh.
we go adding our doubt, our unbelief, thinking that we're wise in
Mm-hmm.
full capacity, like the wisest we could ever be. Um, it's all of those things that add extra weight and make it harder for you to
Yeah.
answer the genuine call that God has, because you have
Mm-hmm.
all this premeditated expectation that God
Yeah.
does not have on you. A lot of it I know goes with beginning to trust Him at a greater capacity, and
Yep.
with greater, larger territory comes a surrender. So
Yeah.
what are we
I,
surrendering in order
mm-hmm.
to have greater capacity, in order to
Right.
have our territory enlarged? What are we surrendering? And so I
Mm-hmm.
would surrender the fact that I'm not as wise as I thought I was when it came to all of this, God. Like,
Yeah.
I need your help for the next season because I
Yeah.
don't know nothing. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know anything, God.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's good. And I think I'm somewhat of the opposite in this season because um I've been given wisdom, and just like you, I don't know nothing about nothing. Like, I know what I know, but I don't know nothing, if that makes sense. So,
It does.
but there's no need for me to sit down on my wisdom and not use it, not be
Yeah.
not put it into action. And so I think for me, it's more so like be more confident in the wisdom you have. Yeah, it might, the wisdom you have may not look like this person or that person, but you have wisdom, so use it. But again, like you said, there's that line where it's like, okay, like if God need to humble you, he gonna humble you and he gonna find a way to humble you. But for me, it's more so like just putting into action, using it when I know I need to use it versus being fearful of what's going to come of me using it, which I can say I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm doing much better in that. But that's the season that I'm in is like, girl, use that wisdom. You read your Bible, like, you know what you're talking about. When I tell you to speak, speak. Don't be speaking out of turn when it comes to what you think you know, but speak on what you know.
I think it's so beautiful how I was just kind of sitting here, just kind of listening to us
Mm-hmm.
like go back and forth. And, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful how everybody's in a different season of life. And you know how we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about wisdom right now. And
Yeah.
so, where I feel so small in this season, it's so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful to see how God is like, there are still people that you ministered to that
Mm-hmm.
needed what you had. No, it's not
Absolutely.
working for you right now. And I was just kind of getting this inclination when you was talking about what you were saying, that
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that what I have to say is meaningless, because there are
Right.
still people who have not arrived at, like, we're all in different seasons.
Yeah.
And there are people who have not arrived at the place where God is like, okay, you be the little guy in the room now,
Right.
instead of being,
Right.
and they're being called to be the big guy in the room. And
Yeah.
so it's so
Yeah.
beautiful to see how God is like how our wisdom, like for me, it would seem like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is old wisdom, but
Mm-hmm.
to share
Mm-hmm.
it with someone who is arriving at the place that I'm
Mm.
leaving,
Yeah.
that is so
Dang, that's
beautiful
good.
how God intertwines people,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you are leaving a season, you have wisdom to drop off to someone who may be
Mm-hmm.
arriving there. So it's,
Yeah.
again, it's not to downplay those wisdoms, because Mo, I do remember a time when God was calling me to be, it like almost brings tears to my eyes, like just
Uh-huh.
listening to you say that, because I remember a time when God was calling me to be confident in what he said and to
Yeah.
not be afraid to like roar about what he said and be
Yeah.
boastful and happy about my relationship with him. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's so beautiful to see my little sister like
Yeah.
arriving to a place where I'm having to depart from. And
Mm-hmm.
I
And
grieve
you've
this
spoken
place,
about that.
but it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
beautiful to watch God stair step. Like, don't grieve
Mm-hmm.
this place. Don't feel sad because you're not the smartest person, because
Mm-hmm.
there's someone that is coming directly behind you that will
Yeah.
need you to get your wisdoms, like get your new
Yeah.
ones, get
Mm-hmm.
your new understandings. And so it is a very humbling place to be in. And I think that's why it makes me emotional, because I'm like pressuring God about where we're going. But
Yeah.
I'm noticing just by us sitting here talking that he is pushing me out so you can come in.
Right.
And
Make
that is
room,
so
girl.
beautiful. Like, we get in these fist fights with God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy
But
because
there's a reason.
I'm
Yeah.
just in front of you getting this revelation.
Yeah.
Like, not that
Yeah.
this was before Woman Warriors or anything, but it just makes me emotional. I mean, it's just wrecking how he
Mm-hmm.
is moving in this season. Like, the man be having me in tears. Like, it's so crazy how he is so intentional with us when it
Uh-huh.
comes to us having wisdom and understanding, how
Mm-hmm.
intentional he is with us, and how he won't let our soul rest in the place
Mm-hmm.
that we're in. Like, we'll be aggravated and
Yeah.
frustrated because we're not evolving the
Mm-hmm.
way that he wants us to evolve. And
Mm-hmm.
so it kind of feels a little bit better to know, like, oh, okay,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not that you're trying to like push me into a place where I am
Mm-hmm.
not. There's like
Mm-hmm.
somebody that you told me there would be someone after me. And that
Yeah,
goes back to our
exactly.
knowledge. Like, one of
Exactly.
the last things that he said, like, there'll be
Yep.
somebody after. None of this is in vain. And
Yep.
so it's really beautiful to watch, and just be a part of
Mm-hmm. Because you
that,
were,
like watching each other transform into
yeah,
different seasons. It's just so crazy. It's so wild.
you were talking, what, season one, episode 3 or 4? I don't know. But you were saying how you were the lighthouse and you were struggling with certain things, and you were like, God, why? Like, I'm struggling. And you weren't I mean, you were questioning God. You said you were questioning God for being where you were. And God told you that you were in that place because there's someone coming behind you. You are the leader. You were called to be the leader. And I think this is the perfect example of you are getting pushed out of that space because God's like, make space for someone else, and that space is for me. So go ahead, move out the way.
Put on your big girl drawers. It's time to
Listen,
go.
listen. Put your armor on.
Yeah.
Listen, because I'm trying to get in where I'm trying to get in.
No,
But
really.
I no, but for real, I think it's amazing because I mean, I really do learn a lot from you, and I'm sure you learn, different things from me as well. But um, I think that the whole purpose of, you being ahead, you being a leader, that's just what God has called you to do. And right now, it's easier for me, or it's more beneficial for me to follow someone who has that wisdom, that type of wisdom. Because again, I don't have all the answers. I don't ever claim to have all the answers. I got a long way to go. We all got a long way to go. But in this season, God's telling me, all right, it's time for you to put your big girl pants on and be more confident and flourish. Like, get out there. Don't be in the background. And it's coming along. It's coming along. He working on it. It's coming.
Yeah.
But I just think
Jesus.
I really do think it's so beautiful. And it's not even in just, I mean, for sure in my spiritual life, but just in every aspect. I feel like every time God gives me wisdom or pushes me to a different level, he does it everywhere. He's like, all right, like in your Bible, in your word, in your spiritual life, all right, in your finances, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, in your relationships, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, in your work, this is what we're gonna do. So it's kind of like a whole encompass of like, girl, all at once, all at once, like you got this. I'm like, everything? You
Everything.
everything? He's like, yeah. I need to you have the confidence in you, but I need you to bring it out. You have the wisdom, but I need you to push it out. So we're gonna push it out at all ends. And I'm just like, okay, we're gonna push. But this is not a me show whatsoever. This is not a me show. But it's also, I think about a lot of the past episodes we've had, especially pertaining to discipline and just having the right heart posture. And I think that's what I've learned a lot from you. So I think that wisdom that you have, or, I don't want to, take away from you saying you're in the season of humility, but the wisdom that you had, now it's time to give it to me. Let me use it. Let me work on it. Let me put it into action. And so yeah, that's why I love Women Warriors so much, because it really uh it brings out what God's trying to bring out in
Yeah.
me.
I mean, it's just a very humble place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that every leader that is called has to visit this place.
Yeah.
Before God will ever allow you to be anything great, you have to
Mhm.
visit a season of humbleness, where
Yeah.
you are not, again, the smartest. You won't be the one that knows how to pray the best. You won't be the one that knows how to fast the best or nothing the best.
Girl be
But
hungry.
it is a beautiful position to be in because God, I know from experience that God surrounds you with people who have what you don't, and
Yeah.
are willing to share some of it. Mo,
Mhm.
like you were saying, how in a lot of these seasons of Women Warriors, that you have learned things from me, and I'm mostly telling you the stuff that I learned from either Mama T, or how the
Right.
oil just spills down,
Yeah.
and it's so
Yeah.
beautiful how God allows that to happen, because I'm thinking I'm in
Mhm.
such a small place, like, oh well,
Right.
I gotta shrink here, and it's not about that. It's not about
Yeah.
shrinking. My God, that is just, I just had a revelation right there, because
Mhm.
it's not about shrinking. It's about humbling yourself before the Lord and saying,
Yeah.
Lord, I need you to align me with the season that I am supposed to be in. And so,
Right.
not that these wisdoms that you shared with me all of this time previous to now don't mean anything, but
Right.
please allow those wisdoms to um store in hearts that they were supposed to store in, and that
Mm.
they will remember, and I can move forward and gain new things to pour into my family
Right.
and into my little sisters, and
Mhm.
so it's so crazy that I felt like, so I think that's what brings tears to my eyes, because I felt like God was showing me so much stuff that it
Mhm.
made me feel like, I guess, just unqualified. Like, how could you want
Mm.
me? And so to sit here and have this conversation with you, I know
Mhm.
that's God's way of saying, like, I'm not showing you this like for nothing. I'm not
Right.
showing you this so you can feel bad about yourself. I'm showing you this so you
Exactly.
can grow. Cause you
Mhm.
remember how many things I had to show you the last time I was squeezing you. You remember
Mhm.
you thought those things were bad too. But we
Yeah.
moved on from that. And so
Yeah.
God has the most beautiful way of reminding you, like, I said what I said. And no
Mhm.
matter how disqualified you feel, no matter how
Yeah.
much you think that certain things disqualify you, they don't.
Yeah.
But I know that He is calling us into a place where we will submit ourselves, and where we will
Mhm.
be humble, and we will say, God, I don't know. Or, God, I am this. Like, this is
Yeah.
just what I am. And I need your help, because at this point, I've tried to fix it on my own, and I can't.
Mhm.
We don't even say can't in my house too much, but I tell God all the time, listen, I
Mhm.
cannot fix this without you. Like, I've tried in
Yeah.
my own strength. And so in this season, I've tried with the wisdom that I have, but
Mhm.
I know it won't work. Like, these things won't work anymore. So now the only thing I know to do is to pray and
Yeah.
to allow God to pull more stuff out so He can
Mhm.
put more stuff in. And maybe
Mhm.
we'll revisit some of those old wisdoms when it's time. Maybe
Yeah.
He'll send me to
Pull it
minister
out
to
the
somebody.
archives.
Those
Mhm.
old wisdoms will be put to use. But for now, it's a new season.
Yeah.
And I think that I know that we have to surrender. Like, He's calling us to surrender. Like, He's showing us stuff, all the bad stuff. And He's
Uh-huh.
saying, surrender still. Like, still submit. Like, I
Yeah.
can I can fix it. Like, give it to me. And
Mhm.
that in itself is a battle. But going back to the definition of wisdom, one of the
Mhm.
things is that we have good judgment. So if we already seen God fix pieces of us that we never thought could be restored, why not let Him have more and see what He
Right.
could do with more? And if we are not as wise as we want to be, why not go back to the hem of His garments and refine our
Mhm.
skills? Why not go back to the Word and
Yeah.
refine our skills so that we can be wise? Because there's no sense in being wise and not doing anything
We're
with
not
it.
using it.
There's no sense. Like, who are you
Mm-hmm.
ministering to with your wisdom? Are you
Yep.
ministering to anybody? When you get an opportunity and someone calls you and you have God has done some deliverance with you on rejection, are you ministering to that person about
Yeah.
how rejection can take hold of their life, or are you allowing them to sit in these places where
Mm-hmm.
you can identify that they are? And so I think that we have to just continue to, well, I know that we have to continue to just let God do what he does best and allow him to humble us. We got to pray. We got to pray. Like that skipping prayer and watching Netflix instead, it's not
Mm-hmm.
working in this season. And if it is working, you're missing something. I'm telling you, if it's working for you,
If
you
it's
missing
working, you're
something.
missing something.
If something ain't nagging you in
That's
your
good.
soul while you sitting there watching your fourth episode or something, you missing something. If you didn't pray today and it doesn't
You
bother you, something like you're being distracted from something.
dang,
And
you
I'm
in
being
somebody's grill
serious when I say
tonight.
that. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you can binge episodes right now, you're missing something, because God
Yeah.
is doing a thing and he's transforming us, and he
Mm-hmm.
is calling us to pay closer attention and to be more disciplined and to not be distracted by the
Yeah.
things of the world that are meant to keep us distracted from what he wants us to do.
Absolutely.
And so we got to do something about what we know. We got to
Yeah.
do something about it. We can't just know and let that be the end all be all, like that we just only know. And so
Mm-hmm.
minister to somebody today, especially if you find yourself in a place where you receive some deliverance for some stuff. Work on what he's already delivered you from. Work on that, like minister about that. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you feel like you don't have wisdom, ask. You have to ask and you shall receive.
And
And
that's
so we
that's the
have to
thing. Yeah.
also be asking for godly wisdom, not that we just be wise and that's it. You need to be asking for godly wisdom
Yeah, yeah.
because he knows
That's
your heart.
it. That's
He,
it though. Asking. Like
yeah.
it's so simple. Like when you really think about it, like just sit there and ask. And I feel like a lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people that don't know think that sometimes your asking is going to be answered immediately. Sometimes your asking is going to be answered in general, but sometimes your asking is not what God's trying to give you. So sometimes your ask may be, excuse me, for wisdom, but God's like, well, let's work on humility for a little bit, or let's work on compassion for a little bit, or let's work on patience for a little bit. And then when you're equipped and you're ready, I'm going to give you that wisdom.
And I know that season of let's work on who you really are. That season lasts a long time. Let's work on you telling the truth about who you really are. And I'm like, I don't know, Lord. I think we gonna be here. I think we gonna be here for a
Listen, we
minute.
might be in this room for a couple
I'm trying
weeks.
to tell you, help me, Lord. Lord, I need strength. Help me open my mouth for the truth about who I am, God.
Yeah.
Help me fix my mouth to tell the truth. But it's
Yeah.
real talk. Like, help me
Mhm.
fix my mouth to tell the truth so I can get help, because wisdom is
Yeah.
seeking help. Wisdom
Mhm.
is attaching yourself to people who are walking the walk that you want to walk and talking the
Yeah.
talk that you want to talk. It's also understanding that things have to change in order for you to become wiser, in order for you to be gravitated
Mhm.
towards the heart of Christ. Things must change, and I can't tell you what has to change in anyone else's life specifically. I can tell you my
Right.
mess. I can tell you what God's calling me to change, but you have to understand that that is a part of having wisdom, is understanding
Mhm.
that things will change. A part of my new understanding, a part of a wisdom that I'm asking God to enhance in my life, is that test and trial will come. Okay, God, help me face it with boldness. Help me
Yeah.
not fix my mouth to complain about test and trial, because if
Mm-hmm.
my knowledge serves me correct, there is nothing that you haven't seen me through. So in this season, help me not be so swayed by test and trial. Help me
Yeah.
not be swayed by affliction so that I can advance to the next round. Help me with temptation. Help me resist temptation so I can advance to the next round. Like I can
Right.
advance to the next level that you would have me. But I understand that until I get some of these things under control, God will not
Mm-hmm.
allow me to go any further until
Mm-hmm.
I place myself in that position where I do feel more comfortable being transparent with people about
Mm-hmm.
who I really am. And I
Yes.
believe there's freedom in just being transparent about who you are. Um, I myself have experienced a lot of freedom in just being honest, just
Mm-hmm.
telling people what I'm going through. And that has opened doors for me to be aligned with the proper people just by
Yeah.
telling people what I'm going through, nothing else. Just showing up to
Something so
church
easy.
is
Just
helping me
being
be
there.
aligned.
Uh-huh.
And so, one other note that I wanted to highlight was don't try to operate in unreadiness. I'm not sure. Was
Ooh.
that no? That was a prayer. I think Pastor Carl said that though. It was a prayer note that I had. But don't try to operate in unreadiness. And so for myself, that would be like asking God. For myself, that would be like asking God for X, Y, and Z, but not praying more or not fasting more. You know,
Right.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, or asking God, let's say you ask God for a new house, but you're not
Uh-huh.
preparing yourself for a new house and your old house still dirty.
Right, right.
You know
Yep,
what I
yep.
mean?
You're
And you
not
wish
taking
that
you're
you took care of your old house,
you're
but you
not for
steadily asking God for
exactly.
a new house. And
Yeah.
it's just like I'm asking God to realign my heart, but
Mm-hmm.
I won't let none of the old stuff that he's trying to pull
Mm-hmm.
out of my heart that doesn't belong. I won't let that stuff go to create room for him to
Mm-hmm.
create a clean heart in me. So those
Yeah.
things, those situations are really synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
And so,
I
Mo, do you
remember
have
mom
any
used to
last words?
I was just gonna say I remember mom used to say, um, all the time when we were growing up and like the house wasn't clean or something, and she was like, "You can't expect God to increase whatever it was because you're not stewarding what you have properly." Not those exact words, but you're not taking care of what you already have. And the other day, it's so funny you said that because the other day I was talking to God and asking Him for something new, something different, if it was in His will, and it just like hit me like, okay, but look at it right now. Like you're not even taking care of it the way it's supposed to be. The way I saw it as being taken care of was like, oh, like it's good, but it's like you're not even taking care of what you have right now. So how can you expect me to give you something that you think is better? It's like take care of what you have now. Um, but the only thing that I have left is the initial prompt was, you have the wisdom, but are you allowing it to transform you for the heart of Christ? And I just think that the heart of Christ that we both experienced is just love, compassion, grace, and forgiveness. And sometimes God allows things to happen in our lives that require us to be in those places where we have to forgive, to be in those places where we have to show grace, or to be forgiven even, or to um, be patient with someone, or for someone to show patience towards us. And so I think as I was reading this prompt, it just reminded me like, hey, sometimes you have to sit in that place. You're asking God for one thing, but sometimes you have to sit in that place and experience it before it's given to you. Um, but yeah, I think that for me, for sure, like just being confident in my wisdom, and this was such a great episode because now I'm really gonna. I mean, I feel like I was already pushing, pushing a little bit, but he's like, all right, we done had this talk. We really done had this talk. So now it's time for you to go out and get it.
And I think you started off beautifully. Look how long
Mm-hmm.
he's been working on your
Yeah.
confidence building. And it's so beautiful that he started with something as simple as Woman Warriors,
Yeah.
just to get you to say, I believe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
publicly confess. And now
Yeah.
that you have knowledge and understanding of
Mm-hmm.
what he is attempting to do with your life, where he's attempting to
Mm-hmm.
push you to, I believe that it helps you with confidence also when you know exactly what God said.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, we're going back to old wisdom, but here we are. And so
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the beginning of my walk with God, a lot of it was character correction, character
Yeah.
correction, character correction,
Yeah.
character
Yeah.
correction, character correction. And I would be like, God, this is so hard. Like, why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing this to me? Oh, God, this hurts. And it
Yeah.
started with forgiveness. It started
Mm-hmm.
with something as simple as forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how much it transformed my walk with him when I simply
Mm-hmm.
learned to forgive people. When I
Yeah.
learned that I was not any better and that everybody suffers from
Yeah.
some kind of trauma, but the blood
Yeah.
was shed. It's
Yeah.
done. The matter
Yeah.
is done. And so once you learn the how how substantial the blood is and how it was shed for every single one of us, it makes forgiving people a lot easier. It makes it
Mm-hmm.
almost your obligation to
Yeah.
forgive people if you want God to forgive you. And so, yes,
Right.
I want God to forgive my debts as well as I
Uh-huh.
forgive the debts of others. And
Yeah.
I want God to help me to forgive the way that I'm supposed to forgive. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that in my praying for that, he started allowing people to hurt me big time. He started
Ooh.
allowing it to happen. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
God was what made it happen, but he allowed it to
Right.
happen because the
No,
way
for
that it
sure.
refined my heart for people, like just understanding, like, you're doing that to me because you're hurt. It's not
Right.
because it's not, maybe you want me to feel the pain that you feel because you don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to articulate the pain that you're feeling. Not that we
Yeah.
should be anybody's punching bag, but I took a lot of blows to the face to
Mm-hmm.
learn forgiveness. It took actually learning, like on the job training for
Yeah.
forgiveness. And so that was one of the first things. And then he began to work on my heart posture with love. And the unconditional love thing is a whole nother ballpark
Ooh.
that you better know what you're asking for until when you get busy inside of asking. You
Listen.
better know what you're asking for when you're asking God to shape your heart for unconditional love, because that's what he will do. And you will be
Mm-hmm.
tested and you will be tried by fire,
Uh-huh.
the hot kind, the scorching kind. You will not burn or smell like smoke when you come out,
Mm-hmm.
but it is fire. Like, just assuming responsibility for asking that, like for
Yeah.
asking to change my heart and make me more like you. Oh, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to. And a lot of it is not going to feel good, but we have to understand that we're not experiencing anything that Christ didn't already experience. And I believe that that is what mends us together when we're trying to have a heart like Christ. That is what draws us closer to his heart,
Mm-hmm.
is actually assuming the position of his heart and actually walking out, the things that he had to walk out.
Yeah.
Persecution, forgiving others who didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to have a thing to do with forgiving you. Of course, he was
Listen.
sinless. He was without sin. And so he didn't
Yeah.
need the forgiveness of other people, yet he was still forgiving.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
all of these things shape our wisdom and shape our heart to be postured like Christ. And so
Mm-hmm.
it is from my experience, it is an ever growing process. You're
Mhm.
always growing. God is always squeezing something out of you. Just when you think that you have a fancy idea about who he
Was
is, here he come doing a 180 on you. That joker will turn you loose so quick and then put you right back where he got you from. Spin you around, turn you around, put you somewhere else. And then you're like, where did I,
Mhm.
it's crazy. It's so wild how we evolve when we really
Mhm.
allow God to just work on us, when we allow him
Yeah.
to refine us. So my prayer is that for everyone this week, that God will put you into a humbling position where you refine
Mhm.
your wisdoms, where you seek him more day after day, that we all would seek him more, that we would pray more, that we would have new wisdoms for new seasons, not be
Yeah,
using old wisdoms for new seasons, that we would discipline
because
ourselves,
they won't work.
that we would all be encouraged despite what God shows us, that we will not run,
Mhm.
we will not hide, we will face ourselves. So
Yep.
that is my prayer for us, that we will continue to face ourselves. We will continue to allow God to make our hands clean and our hearts pure.
Mhm.
And so that is my prayer going out for everybody, that we would keep working towards the call, keep working
Yes.
towards where God has called you. And if you don't know, again, ask, ask, and you shall receive.
See.
And so now we're going to do what you know, Mo.
Oh, what I know is I got a little quote for y'all, real simple. It says, "Live today like you have a purpose for tomorrow." And scene.
Hey, that was good. Live today like you have a purpose for tomorrow. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Women Warriors, where we are learning to stay connected to Christ. You all stay prayed up. Maybe try a fast one day this week or something. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try a day. Or if God directs me to do more, I'm gonna do more.
I can do
But be
24.
obedient. Be sensitive to the voice of God this week, and we will
Mhm.
see you all back the Sunday after next. We will not be here next
Yes.
Sunday, but we will see you all the Sunday after next for another episode of Women Warriors.
Women Warriors.
Until then, stay prayed up, guys. Be blessed.